services. Data is transiting to the cloud, and we'll see that 94% of the data center traffic will come from the cloud. Machine learning and artificial intelligence has picked up significantly, and we will see that 1 billion workers will be assisted by machine learning as time progresses. We're looking at 20.6 zettabytes of global data growth every year. So data is growing significantly. And coming with that is the cloud. The cloud is the key enabler to this new digital era. I have some research results from the types of Gartner, Turbonomics, and Forbes saying 81% of the enterprise workloads will be in the cloud by 2020. We're already in 2020. 75% of databases will be deployed or migrated to the cloud by 2022. 83% of organizations expect workloads to move freely with it between clouds, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud or a hybrid cloud environment. But 83% of organizations would have their workloads sitting in there. The truth is, we are at a tipping point. Further studies show that 80% of leaders are at this point where they need to use the data to make decisions, and this has become the top responsibility of the chief data officer. Organizations want to adopt self-service business intelligence initiatives because they want to look at that data, do analytics on it, and come out with decisions to move their organizations forward. The research also shows that in 2 years, companies will compete based on customer experience. It's all about the customer. The customer is the one paying the bills. So you'd want to make your decisions in line with what that customer experience is happening, which requires looking into that data and carrying out deep analytics on it. The truth about it is that there's a challenge with governance because not everybody knows where their customer data really resides in the organization. It's sitting in different silos scattered around the place, but you can't really put your finger on it. I want to just touch on the role of the chief data officer, which is shifting. Traditionally, the chief data officer looked after risk and compliance management, things around the industry standards in the respective industries. But now that is changing because the role of the chief data officer has shifted into driving business value, where you're aligning the business goals with your business objectives, looking at your revenue growth, looking at your cost reduction across the customer focus, your operational efficiencies, what is your reputation in the market. And you need to balance all of this with corporate governance, with the regulatory compliance. But the role has shifted because everything is around data. 80% of organizations this is a research from MIT Sloan, shows that a high ability to innovate. Organizations with a high ability to innovate have strong data sharing practices, both internally and beyond company borders. That means they're digging into their data. They're sharing this data across the multiple departments. They're finding insights from the data they have collated, and they're making decisions based on this. So the ability to innovate as an organization is based on your ability to work the data you have within. And 80% of the organizations that can do this would advance tremendously. What are the things that drive organizational initiatives? And I have quite a list here across all industries, but since we're talking to FCMB, I'll focus on the financial services. So what drives the organizational initiatives in financial services? Compliance is key because it's a very highly regulated industry. Your marketing analytics are key because you're looking at customers, risk assessment, fraud detection, the data security in itself, personal finance, financial planning, customer operations automation, automating your operations. All of these drive the organizational initiatives. But these initiatives can be delayed or they can fail outrightly. Because even as data is sitting right in the middle of it all, there are challenges we see with the data. First of all, the inability to share from the multiple sources, the duplication of efforts because data is sitting in silos, so you're replicating efforts within the organization. There's a fragmented and manual process for governance. You don't have a central point where you can apply all your governance rules and format onto, because the data is sitting in different silos. And if this data is not managed properly, it begins to erode. The data you're collecting is coming in different forms, different formats, so it varies very widely. So the ability to manage that can delay or cause your initiatives to fail. I mentioned earlier that identifying where your sensitive data is located could be a challenge because it's spread across silos across the organization. And of course, if you do not have confidence in this data, it will delay your decisions and it'll cause you to lose quite a number of opportunities. So this data needs to be taken care of. This data needs to be cleaned. This data needs to be prepared. You need to trust your data because the decisions you're making are based on that data. So if you trust that data, then you know you're making the right decisions. Again, research has shown that 80% of the time is spent on searching for data and preparing that data to be able to use, analyze, and use for decision making. 25% from research shows that useful data, only 25% of useful data was tagged. Tagged meaning you know where it is, you know what it's about, and you know how to use it. The sad thing is about only 13% of that 25% of useful data was used for analysis. So in all of the data, you're probably just using only about between 3 and 4% in doing your analysis and making your decisions, because the data is not clean, the data is not prepared, you do not trust that data. So all those opportunities are going out the door because you're not using an optimal amount of data in your decision making. So this brings me to data architecture. I like this definition from the Data Management Body of Knowledge. It says data architecture is data strategy specifications that outline the current state, that describe the data requirements, that direct the data integration and the managing of your data assets. So building an architecture around your data is key so that you can work that data properly and trust that data, clean it up, govern it, make sure it's of optimal quality, to begin to throw your analytics tools at to get very good decisions, taking your business and organization forward. Data architecture is the middle ground between technical execution and your business strategy. It's what connects both. It's what connects what you're doing operationally as a business and with the strategy of the organization moving forward. It has guidelines, it has processes for its collection, the usage, the processing, the storage, and integration within different systems. Now, in building a modern data architecture, there are certain factors you'd want to consider. You'd want to consider identifying the most valuable type of your data. What are the valuable data types that are valuable to your decision making or to your analytics that will result in your decision making? You need to be able to govern that data properly. You need to be able to have flexible systems that will acquire, handle, and manage this data. You'd want to make it real time because you don't want to be making decisions on old data. You want to go with the flow. You want to have your finger on the pulse as you're working with real time data. In all of this, you need to ensure that that whole entire architecture is secure. And once you've got this foundation in place, you want to provide this data as a service to the multiple units and departments within the organization, so they can apply their own business intelligence analytics tools into that data and get the requirements they need for their own decisions to move the overall organization forward. Housing all of these components is what introduces the data warehouse and the data lake into the picture. With this sort of foundation, you're able to provide customized solutions to the internal departments and externally where the need may be. I have a layout for the architecture, which I've just put up. And this just simply shows how things work in this data management space, where the sources of your data is highlighted on the left, whether it's streaming from machine data, from applications, from log files, from Internet of Things, if that applies, mobile and social media input. On-premise infrastructure also generates a lot of data from your mainframe, from your application servers, the databases, and also your ERP systems. All of this is pumping data in. Based on the architecture, all this data is coming into your data lake. And I'd just like to make a quick definition of both. The data lake is different from the data warehouse. The data lake is a vast pool of raw data, everything as it is. Purpose for this data is undefined, but it's just a collection point. So this is your data lake. This is where you now apply part of the data management process, which we'll come to in the next couple of slides. So all the data is sitting in this data lake. Whereas the data warehouse is a repository for structured, filtered data that is processed for specific purpose. And if you look at the diagram, we see where the data lake sits right in the middle, having collected all the data, and then once processed, it sits in the data warehouse, and then it can be applied either for real-time analytics, enterprise analytics, line of business or self-service analytics, or you could just plug your data scientists into the pool of the data lake with the raw data and have him do his own bit. If you notice on the right side of the screen, I have the various users that can have access to this sort of data. Back in the day, it was limited to the data scientist or the data engineer, but now you can open up this with the analytics tools we have today as technology is evolving up to the business user, and he can dig into the data with tools available to him to make the right decisions based on what he's seeing. Real-time data streaming storage allows for real-time data to come in, and this applies more in the IoT space or social media space, where especially if you want to look at the customer sentiment, I mean, you can plug in social media streams and see what the pulse is with regards to what people think about your organization, just by using that aspect of the analytics, the real-time analytics, and with stream data coming in. So let's look at the data management processes as it plugs into this architecture. So I have the data catalog, the data governance, the ingestion, the quality, integration, provision, and streaming process. And I'll just go through this in a little detail. The catalog is a collection of the metadata. This is how you know who is who with regards to data. It helps us find what data it is. It's sort of like an inventory to all the available data. So it helps you to fit it into place to understand, okay, this is the kind of data we have, the metadata around it, and all of that. Governance is managing the availability, the usability, the integrity and security of the entire architecture. So keeping tabs to make sure everything is doing what they're supposed to do and everything is placed where they're supposed to be, simply put. Ingestion is a process of moving in and onboarding the data from your multiple sources. And we'll go back to that in the diagram and we'll see how all of this fits into that architecture I showed earlier. Quality is cleaning up that data, making it either qualitative or quantitative, so it's good to use. Integration is combining all of that into your single unified view so you can see everything at a spot. And the cataloging helps with all of this. Provisioning is where you begin to dish it out depending on the requirements. So which is where this forms a platform for the self-service. So I, as a business decision taker, might say, okay, I want to do some analytics on what is our sentiment, what do we need to do around what people feel about us, what's the customer experience, what's the feedback, what's the satisfaction, and the provisioning allows for the platform for self-service for the analytics, depending on what the requirement is, depending on the department that's accessing that data. Of course, stream processing is gathering information live information, real-time information for real-time analytics. So back to our architecture, and this is where those data management processes fit in. Right down at the bottom is the catalog. On the left is the data catalog and governance, managing all the data as it's coming in. So you're cataloging all the data as it's coming in, and then it goes through the second phase, which is the data ingestion. And then everything sits in the cloud data lake. As I said, the cloud data lake is where you just put everything. It's just like one big massive pot of gumbo, and everything is in there, and then you begin to work on it, put in the quality, sort it out, and process it, and begin to provision to either the data warehouse where the data is already ready and fit for use for who requires, whether it's for enterprise analytics, whether it's for self-service analytics or line of business analytics. So the data warehouse is the landing page for all that data once you put it together. The data engineer or the data scientist may choose to dig right back into the data lake itself directly, because their requirements are different and the analysis they will be taking care of will be different. So the whole idea is that you provide a platform for self-service in terms of the business user, right from the business user down to the data scientist. But they have access to this data. You've created this data lake for them, this data warehouse for them to go in. Part of this is also the streaming, which is right at the top. So you have real live streaming information coming in for real-time analytics. So all of this forms the architecture for your for managing your data. Key point to note through all of this is that data governance is at the heart of it all. So you must have a strategy around your data governance. You must have a strategy around the roles of the governance, the policies, the standards, everything around the governance, because this feeds into everything around the data. Whether it's the data architecture, whether it's the reference and master data management, or the metadata management, document management, database operations, security, which is key, data quality, because without good quality, you can't make quality decisions either, the data warehouse itself, and the business intelligence management. So all of this sits around the data governance. So the data governance is key to the entire data management process. I'd like to mention some drivers of the data governance. So with regards to insights and analytics, where we're able to do some predictive analytics based on the trends we've seen in the past in order to make decisions towards the future. Regulations are key. So these help drive the data governance as well because of the industry that the organization sits in. Business enablement also, where you're able to take feelers from what's happening at the customer space, the experience, the satisfaction, which is where I talked about the streaming information that's coming in through social feeds. So you can actually go out into social media and have a look and say, oh, what are people saying about FCMB? Are they saying good things or they're saying bad things? And you're able to get all that information in and understand what the sentiment is around the organization. And then you can take decisions to address those as the case may be. And of course, we're in the age of digital transformation. So your data governance sits in that space as well, whether it has to do with the applied migrations from your on-prem infrastructure even into the cloud, the data warehousing, which we just spoke about, managing that data, giving access, making it self-service platform for different business units to dig in, do the analytics, and are able to take decisions based on all of this. All right, I'd like to just throw in one or two use cases, but just to mention that artificial intelligence technologies in business has risen significantly in the last 3 years. This is a Gartner report, shows that it was up from 4% in 2017 up to 55% in 2020. So organizations are digging into the data they have and are running analytics and are applying machine learning tools and technologies and algorithms and artificial intelligence technologies to make decisions to move their organizations forward. So there's a significant rise in this space. So with regards to use cases, let me just give you an example with regards to business operations, where you're looking at the data, so you know, applying the artificial intelligence and machine learning tools, what the next best offer is to offer to the customer. Also around predictive maintenance for machinery, but in this case for the bank, maybe predictive maintenance around your ATMs and the replenishment of those ATMs, having followed the trend of the usage, the way cash is being used and depleted in each of these locations. You can form the machine learning, can build an algorithm around that, so you can understand, oh, this is the next ATM machine that needs to be replenished in this location because the traffic is this high. So you're able to make predictive maintenance decisions around that. Fraud detection, of course, goes without saying in the financial services space. Looking on the right side of the screen, which is for data management, tagging the data, understanding what data, which data is which, and how you can use that. And as this data comes in, you can begin to make decisions with regards to smart recommendations based on what you see in the trends and the flows, and also to prefer the next best actions based on the data that you're seeing. So these are applications around the data you have collated and collected within that data lake, within that data warehouse, and given access to your multiple departments within the organization to be able to make decisions going forward. In summary, I have just one or two more slides. Just want to talk about the benefits of this modern architecture for data management. So what does it give you? Enhanced integration from the multiple data points, different types of data coming in, you're migrating them together, you're converting them and connecting them to have a pool of data that you can throw in your analytics tools into to get quality decisions out, having cleaned up that data and making sure it's clean and it's of good quality, and then you can make good quality decisions. The increased efficiency of the dynamic platforms, because you've brought all these shared data across from different sections of the organization into a pool, and then you can have a more rounded view of the entire organization and throw in your analytics into that gumbo to get out the directions for where the organization should go. The architecture again gives you the ability to be flexible and transform data as it comes in its various forms, its multiple forms coming in. And we'll go back to the slide finally, so just to refresh our minds. The beautiful thing about this architecture as well is that because it's cloud-based, you leverage all the benefits of the cloud, the storage systems, the management, so you're not having to build your own storage facility or your entire data warehouse or data lake within your environment. You can leverage the cloud systems and all the benefits that come with using the cloud. And because it's emerging technology, as new tools come out, as new analytics tools come out, you can just simply plug them into your data lake, into your data pool, and begin to do your analytics works and get the benefits of emerging technologies as they come out. So these are benefits around the modern architecture for data management. And I just want to leave us with this slide, again, just showing the architecture of the whole picture. Again, data management is a process of ingesting, storing, organizing, and maintaining the data created, pulling everything in from different source points, whether it's your ERP, whether it's on-premise application servers, databases, mainframe documents, or even streaming data from applications, social media, Internet of Things into this data lake, where the data is cleaned up and quality cataloged with strict governance rules to ensure that the data is ready for analytics. So this brings an end to my presentation. I hope it was a bit enlightening, and I'll be ready to take some questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Oladile.
Good afternoon, Joseph.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, I was not really because I was on and off so many meetings. In fact, I'm still in like 3 other meetings at the same time. So I don't know. Is it possible you share the slides with us,
Yes,
or
I can
is
share
it
the slides.
confidential to your team?
No, I can share the slides.
Okay, okay, I will appreciate that so that at least I can also review over time. Thank you.
Not a problem. You're welcome. Okay, it doesn't seem like there are any more questions. I'd like to thank you all for attending. And we will share the slides to those attendees based on the email addresses. We'll send the slides out. Thank you once again for attending this session. And give me the opportunity to give you back 28 minutes of your time. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone, and stay safe.
Thank you.